Dannie Rogers here in our Allen Park studio, now talking with Eric Eager of PFF. Training camp is right around the corner for the Detroit Lions. So Eric, I've got to know, what are your burning questions that you might have for this franchise as the season is about to kick off?
Yeah, this is a fun offseason for the Lions. I think after a year where, Dan Campbell really got that team to play well, they performed relative to the market. So I think we're all optimistic about them. I think for me, my biggest questions are, is Jared Goff healthy after a year where he I thought played pretty well given all the circumstances, but they probably need him to take a step forward to be pretty good this year. And then what's the health of Jameson Williams, the second number one overall pick for them this year, where, how long is he going to take? Because, with bringing in DJ Chark and bringing in, Amon-Ra St. Brown last year, I think that they're shaping up to have a good receiving core. If he can come in and have kind of a Odell Beckham Jr. sort of like rookie season, I think that this team can be pretty good.
All right, you just talked all offense. So is that kind of where most of your mindset is heading towards, where you might need to see a little bit more improvement this season?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Okudah is the third overall pick a couple of years ago. He hasn't stayed healthy, he hasn't played as well as, I think folks would have hoped. But cornerback play is extremely streaky. I mean, we saw with a guy like Amani Oruwariye last year where, he wasn't, terribly well thought of going into the year, and then he goes and gets 6 interceptions. If he continues to play on his trajectory and then Okudah improves, you put in Aiden Hutchinson, you put in Charles Harris, who, was a former first-round pick himself, who came on and played really well last year. That has the makings of a decent defense. And so, the defense is what it's going to be. I think when you look at their schedule, they have the second easiest schedule in the NFL. So they're not going to be facing the murderer's row of offenses that they faced last year necessarily. So they should just even be better just by kind of just showing up again this year. And then to me, that comes all the way down to the offense, because if the offense can be a top half of the league unit, then I think that Lions fans will be pretty amazed at how much better they can be at sort of getting leads as opposed to chasing other teams down at the end of the games, which they were adept at doing last year.
If you were to hone in on which position group on offense really needs to get better in order to put these Lions into a different category, I mean, you look at TJ Hawkinson, who was injured last year, DeAndre Swift was injured last year. When Jameson Williams comes back, like you mentioned, he could have a breakout season. So where specifically on offense do you really want to see these Lions take a big step forward?
I think it has to be wide receiver. I know St. Brown was terrific, and the offensive line, I think it's just going to get better by getting healthier. Ragnow's a former first-round pick, missed a ton of last year. Decker missed time last year. They come back, that's immediately better. Hawkinson, to your point, wide receiver, they've tried to make the position better. So I think that, by acquiring new players, Chark's a former 1,000-yard receiver with the Jaguars. Williams is probably the best wide receiver in college football last year. Josh Reynolds had a pretty decent second half after he came over from Tennessee. And then to your point, Swift, I think, is an explosive running back, that I think can do some things in this offense. So I think it's got to be wide receiver and then skill position in general. But wide receiver is really the part where, everywhere else in the offense, you just say, hey, let's get healthier so that we can be better. And then, the wide receiver position, they legitimately, tried their hardest to improve.
Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned him before, the number 2 overall pick, Aiden Hutchinson, defensive lineman for the Lions. He is going to get his crack at the NFL here extremely soon. So I know he's a great pal of your guys' over at PFF. How do you see him bringing his skill set, what he learned at Michigan, over to the Lions and really just knocking the socks off of opponents off the bat here to start the season?
Yeah, the Michigan to Detroit pipeline, right, is great there. With Hutchinson, we had a 4-part podcast series called Hutch, which you can find on YouTube, as well as basically anywhere you can find your podcast. When you look at him, he was the most valuable defensive end in college football last year, and he was like half a win better than any other player at the position. So when you look at productivity, it was just off the charts. The Lions really, and I think this again is part of the reason we're all buying into Detroit. They get lucky from a schedule standpoint, they get lucky from a timing standpoint, rest and all that differential stuff, and they get lucky when the Jaguars take Trayvon Walker inexplicably over Aiden Hutchinson, so he falls into their lap. They rush to the podium to draft him, and I think he's going to be an immediate impact. And that's been one of the issues. Even back to the Matt Patricia era, where they just struggle to get a pass rush, right? Charles Harris showed something last year for them. I think Hutchinson comes in and he's that sort of alpha on the defensive line that makes everybody better. And then, of course, if you get pressure on a quarterback, it's going to make it easier for the secondary to cover folks. When I know, especially in the Patricia era, when they got no pass rush, it left everybody on an island. Last year was a little bit better, but this year I think you're going to see strides across the defense because of what Hutchinson can do up front.
The entire world, per se, is going to get to see all the ingredients that make up this Detroit Lions team when Hard Knocks comes to town. Eric, I got to know, what are you most excited to watch or see on that show when it's coming up here soon?
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell is going to be a great quote. I think that, that's my biggest thing I'm looking forward to. Obviously, seeing Aiden Hutchinson and how he adapts, you're going to see some great battles. I mean, Penei Sewell was one of the best rookies in the NFL last year, and he should have been. They drafted him top 10 in the league, and then you also have Taylor Decker. I think the battles there will be awesome to see in one-on-ones. It'll be cool to see how Jameson Williams is progressing, as I said, because I think in taking this team from, let's say, a 6 or 7 win team to a 9 or 10 win team, I think Jameson Williams is instrumental in that process. So seeing how his progression goes, like, there's so many great storylines with this team, and it's an NFC where they're begging one or two of these teams, the Giants, the Washington Commanders, the Detroit Lions, are begging one of these teams that hasn't made the playoffs in a while to come back and make the playoffs. And I think Detroit is chief among them as far as candidates to take that step.
Mm-hmm. I know the hype in this building is legit. We get to see it on full display every single day, but the hype outside the building, in the media, everything, it really does, shed a lot of positivity on this team. So pretty much fair to say that optimism, that hype is legit right now, Eric?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look even at the markets, they've moved towards Detroit. They've moved towards Dan Campbell for Coach of the Year. I think he's like one of the 7 or 8 favorites to win that award. I think that the hype is real, and I think, famous last words, right? We said this about Detroit a number of times, especially because of how good Stafford was back in the day, and, things didn't always work out. But I think this team, when you look at the ingredients that it has, it's a team you want to bet on.
I agree. I'm not just saying that. I agree. Thank you so much to Eric from PFF for coming on. We appreciate all of your guys' great nuggets from over there at Pro Football Focus every time you guys get to talk to us. So thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks for having me.